Morning decisions. A creamy mocha frappuccino drink? A sweet vanilla? Maybe a smooth caramel? Or that white chocolate mocha? Whichever you choose, delicious coffee awaits. Start your day with bottled Starbucks Frappuccino drinks. Pick up a bottle near you wherever you buy your groceries.
It's The Other Side of Midnight with Frank Morano.
This is The Other Side of Midnight. I'm Frank Morano. I am really always excited to be able to talk to Jim McCann, not only because he has just a tremendous wealth of experience, not only because he is just an easy guy to get along with, but because he has such a refreshingly optimistic and positive attitude. And a lot of times when I find myself having a rough day or being a little overwhelmed, I will ask myself the question, what would Jim McCann do? Well, in this very moment, this is a little bit less of a rhetorical exercise because I can actually just ask Jim what he would do because he's kind enough to join me on the radio right now. Very pleased to welcome the founder of 1-800-Flowers and Smile Farms and the author of the new book, Lodestar, Tapping into the 10 Timeless Pillars of Success. Jim McCann, it's great to have you back on the radio.
Frank, great to be with you. I talk to you often, but you don't hear it because it's one-sided. It's nice to be able to speak directly to you.
All right, Jim.
I agree with you so much. It's not voicing disagreement. It's hey yeah.
I appreciate that, and on the occasion where we are disagreeing, chances are I'm probably wrong. Before we talk about Lodestar, which I've been enjoying, and I want to chat about, and hopefully the folks will read. Today's Halloween. It's not exactly, I never thought of it as a gift-giving holiday, but if you're someone like my mom, she views every holiday as a gift-giving holiday. She'll come by on Flag Day and say, oh, here's Carmine's card for Flag Day. For someone like my mom, do you guys do at 1-800-Flowers Halloween-themed flowers and things like that?
We do. They're popular, the flower themes, but we have other brands. We have chocolate brands, Schaffenberger Chocolate, Simply Chocolate. We have Popcorn Factory, which has all the different tins of popcorn and all the different Halloween themes. We tend to attract a lot of grandparents who want to send gifts to their kids. And first on that list would be me. Mary Lou and I like to send Cheryl's cookies to our 7 grandkids in 3 different households because they make these delicious buttercream frosted cookies, individual cookies. They come individually wrapped, and they're just delicious. But I had a friend who I bumped into recently, my age, so he's got grandkids too. And he said, I send Cheryl's cookies to my grandkids for every holiday. I said, well, Mary Lou and I do too. And he says, but I do one better than you, I bet. I said, okay, go ahead, tell me. He said, well, my grandkids don't live near us. They live, one set's in California, one set's in Denver, Colorado. He said, so I insist that if they ever want to get them again for the next holiday, whether it's Halloween or it's Thanksgiving or it's Christmas or it's Easter, he said, I tell them, if they send me pictures of them eating the cookies, they'll be sure to get the next gift. And I was right. He was right. He topped me on that. And now starting Halloween, we're doing that with our kids, even though we're lucky enough to see them all the time because they live
love
nearby.
That. That's great. Is your house a fun house to trick or treat at? Am I getting a full-size candy bar if I come dressed as Frankenstein's monster?
Well, you're going to get Cheryl's cookies.
Cheryl's cookies.
Because they're the most popular Halloween gift because they're individually wrapped. They're big.
But you will actually
delicious.
give those to the trick-or-treaters?
Oh, sure, absolutely.
Oh,
and we sell boxes of them of 100 at a time. And I can guarantee you yours will be one of the most popular houses in the neighborhood.
That's good.
Our neighborhood, there's a couple of places where we go with a whole neighborhood, like a 2-block stretch. We'll go all out on house decorating, and parents come, grandparents come, and it like becomes a street festival. So that's what we'll spend tomorrow night,
all right,
later tonight.
Well, let's talk about Lodestar, tapping into the 10 timeless pillars of success. What's Lodestar all about? Why did you write this book? What are you hoping people take away from it?
Well, Frank, the whole self-help community, the self-help, self-improvement industry, I didn't realize was an industry, but I've come to learn that. And it's a category with 85,000 books in print. Whoa. It's a category that does about $10 billion a year in revenue. And I'll tell you how it started. Beginning of COVID, I started, as you know, to write a newsletter to our community at the 1-800-Flowers companies, all of our companies. And I started to write a newsletter because I didn't know what to do when COVID broke out. Would people buy gift baskets and cookies and chocolate and flowers? And I didn't know what impact it would have on our business. So a young lady who was my chief of staff at the time, Meredith, suggested that we just write a letter to our customers about how we were thinking about how it would impact relationships and how it was impacting our company and what we were going through. And that was 4.5 years ago, and I'm still doing it. And along the way, people started asking me questions about relationships, and I didn't feel well equipped enough to answer them. So I sought out a half a dozen, maybe now 8 of the best thought leaders that I know of, psychologists from around the country. And I created what I call my Connectivity Council. And the first person I asked to join that Connectivity Council, Frank, was a fellow I wrote a letter to, a fan letter, when in April of 2020, March was when it started. In April of 2020, he wrote a piece in Psychology Today that I happened to read. And it was all about his anticipation of how relationships of all kinds were going to be impacted by COVID and our lockdown. And I wrote him a fan letter. I said, Dr. George Everly, this piece is terrific. It's changed. It's helped me so much. It's really given me some insight into how I need to be careful to maintain the relationships that are most important to me. And I just hope someday we have occasion to chat. Well, Dr. George Everly at Johns Hopkins, on the faculty there, on the Bloomberg School of Public Health Leadership, he wrote back and he said, well, I'd love to talk to you. Why don't we make it happen? And we did. And that started a journey where he joined our council. He was so helpful. We were working on projects around loneliness, around relationships, around the impact on our kids' education. And so we became buds. We were COVID buddies because we hadn't yet met in person. And he called me 2.5 years ago and said, Jim, the projects we're working on, I'm really excited about, and I know you are. I have a suggestion. Why don't we write a book together? And Frank, I was just so flattered that this very, very learned man wanted to work on this project with me. And I'll tell you, 2.5 years later, I worked my butt off. And he is brilliant in so many ways. And the sessions, our writing sessions, our work sessions, our research sessions, I couldn't absorb all that I was learning in those times. So I started recording them. And so this process has been a journey for me. And the destination is one of, I think I'm a different person as a result of the project. I can't wait to share the lessons I learned from George in this process. I can't wait to share the stories of how other people I know in my long life that have exhibited these habits and traits and behaviors that have made them successful. I can't wait to share it with our community.
That is extraordinary. So at 30 minutes after the hour, this is The Other Side of Midnight. My guest is Jim McCann. In the book, you and Dr. Everly explore countless self-help books and life philosophies. What surprised you most in your research? What were there any common themes that challenged what you had already understood to be success? Anything that changed your way of thinking?
Frankly, yes. And what George did was he did a factual analysis of the early days of our work, going back to historic books, the first self-help book that I was aware of, which was the Bible, and back to works of Aristotle, and then current day, last 100-year works, Dale Carnegie, and today people like James Clear with Atomic Habits, and Tim Ferriss with the 4-Hour Work Week, and all the great work he's done since then, and people like Cynthia Covey-Haller and Stephen Covey, and going through all that work, George did this factual analysis on this big computer printout of the 10 recurring themes of the works that we most admire and respect and think are foundational to how to be your best self. And so that surprised me that there were just really only 10 themes, because there's 85,000 books in print. But the essence of the ones we most respect, the ones we've get the most out of, and frankly, the ones we tell you to steer clear of, we're not saying not to read those. We cite over 100 books in our book that we think are important, useful, and something you should consider reading as well. But we said if you read our book, which has workbook aspects to it, has summaries, and it'll give you a blueprint to get the most out of The Secret and Atomic Habits and all the other great works we cite in the book.
Your book is described as a one-stop shop for self-help guidance. Why do you think we're seeing an increasing demand for simplification and synthesis in the self-help world?
Well, because mental health is a challenge for us today. Loneliness, as you know, you and I have chatted about this quite a bit, is something that I'm very concerned about, you're concerned about, we should all be concerned about. So I think the need is as much as it's ever been. And then you have macro changes that are going to threaten our sense of self even more in the months and years ahead. Things like the impact of artificial intelligence, down the road some the impact of quantum computing. It's going to upset a lot of us. And if you're not foundationally strong, if you're not have developed the adaptive skills in your own life, in your relationships, in your professional life, then you're not going to be in a position to take the best advantage of those changes, to anticipate them, to prepare yourself to say, this is new and I can make it work for me and for mine.
If you're just tuning in, I'm Frank Morano. This is The Other Side of Midnight. I'm very pleased to be talking with Jim McCann, the founder of 1-800-Flowers, about his new book. One of your chapters that really stuck with me is Your Resume is a Verb. How do you envision that concept shaping someone's career, maybe even their broader life path beyond the professional world, particularly people that may feel stuck in a place in their life, a career plateau, or maybe even someone that is nearing retirement and figuring out what they want to do next?
Well, let's take the latter one first, because I'm old. And, a lot of people my age are already retired. A lot of my friends are, quote unquote, retired. I'm not digging ditches, Frank. I get to do things that are fun and interesting with people of all ages, especially young people every day. So I'll tell you one book that I loved that had a big impact on me, and I mentioned her name already. Her name is Cynthia Covey Hallett, Stephen Covey's oldest daughter, oldest of 9. And she had been doing work with her father, who wrote the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, before he passed. And she decided a couple of years after he passed, and she was going to go back and finish that work. And the book I read a year ago, and I had Cynthia on my podcast. She's a wonderful woman and very much her father's daughter. She wrote a book called Living Life in Crescendo. And the title intrigued me and captured me. And I come back to it all the time, Frank, because I've learned a lot. I've made a lot of mistakes. I've had some successes, good fortune, good luck, and a lot of really good and important relationships. So I could choose to live my life in diminuendo, dun, 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 or say I have more to give, I have more to learn, there's more people I want to hear, I'm curious, I'm interested, I'm optimistic, and I want to be part of things going forward. I want to be involved in more and different things, and I want to make a difference, and I want to make an impression on my kids, especially on my grandkids, and I want them not only to remember me, but to remember me and the impact I had on their lives. And so I choose to live my life in crescendo, as in dun, 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 dun.
I love it. I love it. A guest with his own sound effects, 5-star. So you write about the value of being a lifelong learner. And this is something that's important to me and something that I try to do. And you write about the importance of constantly asking.
You live it, Frank.
Well, I try. I learn from every interview that I do, every caller interaction, every article that I read, preparing to do a segment on it. And you talk about the importance of constantly asking questions like, what have you learned today? Could you share a personal story where this approach transformed your perspective or maybe opened a new door for you?
Well, I took a lesson from someone I met earlier this year on a podcast, and I had a wonderful weekend a week ago. My oldest granddaughter, Abby, turned 16, and our mother and father took Abby and her youngest sister, Emma, and a couple of friends to Miami to the Taylor Swift show as her sweet 16 birthday present. That left their 12-year-old son, my grandson, Liam, who didn't want to go and was busy with sports all weekend, and spend the weekend with his grandmother and I. And we had some great conversations together, but I learned a lesson from this author friend. And in the car on the way home from Westchester, which was about an hour and 45 minutes because quite a bit of traffic, I had great conversations with Liam. And in between the different basketball, it was an all-day event, different games. We'd have a lot of time off between games. And I tell him, if I asked him, hey, how's school going? Fine. But if I asked him, tell me about a subject you're struggling with. And then I asked him, tell me, who are the people that you made friends? It's a new school for him. And I said, what is it you like about Aiden? We had some great conversations because I asked more probing questions that made him think and genuinely engage, that he couldn't give me the rote response. Fine, good. I loved that car ride home. I loved the next day when he was at a lacrosse tournament and it was 5 games and we had time in between games that we just hanging around, chatting, drinking Gatorade together and stuff. And we had some great conversations. That weekend was one of the best weekends I've had in a year. Wow. And it was because I had good quality one-on-one time with a 12-year-old grandson. And I'm hoping and praying that he remembers that weekend half as fondly as I do.
I have no doubt that he will. In discussing the importance of the company you keep, you talk about learning from students as much as they might learn from you. And I guess it's sort of exemplified in the story you just told with your grandson. How do you approach relationships with mentees, and what qualities make them as impactful as relationships with mentors?
I'm thinking of a situation that happened in the office the other day. You know Lisa Sabat, who's my chief of staff. She's terrific. Young lady. She's my kid's age. But she just hired 4 new people to work in the company. So she went out and hired 4 of the best and the brightest, 3 young ladies and a young man. And one came from Wharton, one came from Duke, one came from Yale, one came from Hofstra on Long Island. And we were standing outside the conference room the end of last week chatting about something. And the comment they made was they were surprised that both Lisa and I go out of our way to invite them to sit in on a meeting that they never expected to be asked to sit in on. To ask them their opinion, to do some research on something. They're all new. They're all, the oldest is there 2 months. Most of them are there a month or so. And we have this great dialogue where I heard there's Generation Z and maybe young millennials now. Well, yeah, both. And they told me that they and their friends hardly ever drink. And I was stunned by that, Frank, because my attitude in answer to your question is, what can I learn from them? Mm-hmm. What can I learn from them that I didn't know? What can I learn from them that will impact how I think about business? And hear them say that they don't dislike the alcohol, but that they and their friends just don't consume it. So since then, I asked one of them to do a little research. Her name is Joyce, and she showed me report after report about how Constellation Brands just had to take a $1.8 billion write-down. They do beer and wine and maybe some spirits too, because young people are drinking less. I didn't even know that.
Right.
But I approach it that what can I learn from them? They know things that I don't. They can have insights that I don't. And so to think of a mentor-mentee relationship as just the old copper passing on his learnings is nonsense, because I say there's things I know and how can I learn from them?
This podcast is supported by Progressive, a leader in RV insurance. RVs are for sharing adventures with family, friends, and even your pets. So if you bring your cats and dogs along for the ride, you'll want Progressive RV insurance. They protect your cats and dogs like family by offering up to $1,000 in optional coverage for vet bills in case of an RV accident, making it a great companion for the responsible pet owner who loves to travel. See Progressive's other benefits and more when you quote RV insurance at Progressive.com today. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Pet injury is an additional coverage and subject to policy terms.
Last week was our first playoff game, and my plaque psoriasis was so itchy under all my gear. Sometimes just thinking about scratching could take me out of the moment. And then my doctor told me I could get clearer skin with a pill called Otezla.
Otezla apremilast is a prescription medicine used to treat adult patients with plaque psoriasis for whom phototherapy or systemic therapy is appropriate. Otezla can help you get clearer skin after just 4 months.
Okay, ready for the next game. Talking to my doctor about a pill was a total game changer.
Don't use Otezla if you're allergic to it. Get medical help right away if you have trouble breathing or swallowing, swelling of the face, lips, tongue, throat, or arms. Severe diarrhea, nausea or vomiting, depression, suicidal thoughts, or weight loss can happen. Tell your doctor if any of these occur and if you have a history of depression or suicidal thoughts. Live in the moment. Ask your doctor about Otezla. Call 1-844-4-OTEZLA or visit Otezla.com for prescribing info about cost, and more.
If your brain is at full capacity with to-dos, birthdays, and dinner plans, meet Skylight Calendar. It syncs your entire family's schedule onto a sleek digital display, so you focus on important things like where you left your coffee. Right now, Skylight is offering our listeners $30 off their 15-inch calendars by going to skylightcal.com/talk. Go to skylightcal.com/talk for $30 off your 15-inch calendar. That's skylightcal.com/talk.
With so many options, why choose Arizona State University?
For me, the only online option was ASU because of the quality. Their faculty was really involved with their students and care about your personal journey. The dedication to my personal development from my professors, that's been extremely valuable to me.
Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online. That's a degree better. Explore more than 300 undergraduate, graduate, and certificate programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
That is really interesting, and I think an important learning lesson about learning for all of us. You have another chapter that I really loved about building community. It's called Build Community and Establish Meaningful Relationships. A lot of good stuff here. And I hope you'll come back and we can have a longer discussion just about this chapter alone. But the chapter mentions how traditional masculinity can sometimes inhibit deep connections among men. I've spent a little bit of time talking about this on the radio before, but what approaches do you think society can take to support men in forming meaningful, lasting friendships, particularly with other men?
Well, one thing that comes to mind, Frank, is leave us alone. If we want to have a men's night out, understand that we need that. Mm-hmm. We need that socially. We need especially as you get older. Men need other men relationships. We act different. Look, we'd love to spend time in mixed settings. Of course, that's going to be the majority of the time. But I think that there's a real importance to have other men that you can talk to about what's going on in life, how you approach different things, how you're handling different things. I think. I have a group of friends that we did a podcast together on our podcast, and I invited 3 close friends of mine. George Everly, my co-author, was one of them. A friend of mine from St. Louis, Larry Zarin, was another, and Dick Orletter, a New York communications czar, was the third. So they're all 3 good friends of mine, but none of them knew the other. Not one of them knew the other. So it was a first-time meeting. We've done a couple of collaborations now. And we talk about the value of adult male relationships. And it's for our mental health, for our well-being, for us to be better mates, for us to be better grandfathers, for us to be better fathers. So learning to not be the Marlboro man and the tough, stoic guy that doesn't have emotions or personalities or needs. And I think that the silent generation that my parents were, I think a lot of them suffered in quiet. And I don't think we should. And I think we're healthier when we have good, healthy relationships of all kinds.
So let me end with this, because it sort of underscores almost every conversation that we've had together on the radio. The concept of getting communal is featured prominently in the book. For people that feel isolated or new to a community, and we have a lot of people listening to us right now that are up because something's bothering them, because maybe they're dealing with a medical issue, because maybe they're driving home from, working odd hours and they're on a different schedule than the rest of their family. Maybe they're recently lost a husband or a wife and they're now alone for the first time in a long time. What steps would you suggest to start building meaningful connections for someone that's, having a little bit of a difficult time with that concept of getting communal?
I think I spoke yesterday, Frank, with a lady named Karen. And Karen met a friend of hers that she knew from grade school, and they hadn't seen one another in 30 years. And they live in the Minneapolis, St. Paul area. And Laura and Karen got together. And in the course of a conversation, Karen confessed to Laura that she always wondered what happens to flowers that the flower shops can't use or the supermarket can't use because they're a little older and they're going to throw them away. And she said, I always thought about approaching one of those stores and asking if I could take their discarded flowers, repurpose them, and deliver them to someone like her dad who she recently lost to Alzheimer's, who was in a memory care facility, a care facility because he had these terrible memory issues. And they created a whole charity around it. And fast forward 6 years now, 6.5 years, and they have 400 volunteers who help them collect the flowers, find the vases, get together, clean them, throw out the ones that have to be thrown out, repurpose them, rearrange them, put this nice note thinking of you in the vases and deliver them to 7 different cities, towns around Minneapolis, St. Paul, and to 18,000 different patients on a monthly basis. But what she told me was a story of how communities have formed around this, how different volunteers that come back from Florida a month early because they miss the reaction of people when they walk in with the mason jar filled with some repurposed flowers. And all she told me was story after story of community and how people have now formed little cooking clubs or book clubs. So in addition to their volunteer work, they become a community. So the best way to build and invest in new relationships. And you told me the story about how in your block in Staten Island, how you have a community of friends that you've gone and delivered things that your wife has made to them. You're deliberate about building relationships that'll be beneficial to you and to Carmine and your family. And it's not different there in Minneapolis, St. Paul, where Karen and Laura are creating community. They're doing something good. They have a few paid staffers now and hundreds of volunteers. And she's so excited about the different sub-communities that emerge from that activity. So if you need more connections, what are you doing to volunteer where you'd have occasion to rub elbows and shoulders with somebody else who has a like mind, who you might strike up a relationship with?
I love it.
Think about not your own needs. Think about how you can help someone else to have a good, healthy relationship.
What a wonderful approach. The book is Lodestar. My guest has been Jim McCann. Hopefully you'll check out the book. Jim is the go-to guy over at 1-800-Flowers. The book is Lodestar, tapping into the 10 timeless pillars of success. We've just touched upon a couple here, but I think you get the sense that there's a lot of stuff that everybody can benefit from here. Jim, thank you. It's always a treat to talk with you.
Thank you, Frank. You're the best, and you keep me awake all the time.
That's the idea. Thank you, Jim McCann. If you want to comment on any portion of our discussion, give me a call, 646-720-0635. That's 646-720-0635. This is The Other Side of Midnight. Straight ahead.